All right, this is for real. Hello, welcome to the very first edition of Brews and Tunes, a podcast where we talk about two of our favorite things, brews, as in beer, and tunes, as in music. My name is Stephen Johnston.
And my name is Jesse Titus.
So, for this wonderful new podcast, we are going to have a regular weekly program in which we drink beer and listen to music. But we put a little bit of a spin on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, so every week I'm going to recommend a new punk rock album for Jesse to listen to.
And I will recommend a new, slightly more indie rock or folk rock album for Steve to listen to.
And so we'll listen to each album individually by ourselves, and then we'll come together and talk about them. And while we talk about the music, what will we do?
Drink beer, of course.
Yes, and so we're going to try a new beer each week, and we'll talk about it and say what we think about it. So we'll see how it goes.
This week we're having the same brew for the first week. It is a Blue Moon limited release Cappuccino Oatmeal Stout. So first of all, from Blue Moon, I don't really know what to expect with a stout because
Blue Moon is known for their Belgian-y white ale or wheat ale.
Yeah, so I don't know what to expect in this.
Yeah, Blue Moon. So that's kind of weird. It says stout brewed with oats. Cocoa with decaffeinated coffee.
No caffeine.
No caffeine. That's all right. That's all right.
But
not a problem.
Hey, why don't we crack these open?
Yes, let's crack them open.
See what they smell like real quick.
Well, it smells like kind of a standard stout, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean.
Well, let's crank it down the hatch.
And we'll say our key phrase here.
Yeah, we have a key phrase every time we try a new brew, and it is shibbity-beep-a-dow! Really cocoa-y up front, and then it kind of all flavor dies away really quickly.
Huh.
Not super full-bodied. Well, at first it kind of tastes like a nice full-bodied stout, and then it goes away really quick.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of those, just like one of those beers where you're like, the potential's there, but it just doesn't follow through.
This beer has paved the path to hell with good intentions. Is that the phrase? I think there is a phrase.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
There's a phrase that's like, when someone says, I had really good intentions, and then the person's like, well, the path to hell is paved with good intentions.
Still don't know.
Who knows? It's a beer that could be really good.
True. Yeah, true. I mean,
you know, I might change my opinion the more we have it, so we'll see.
It's not bad. It's just not better than the KBS or
the Bourbon County brand stout.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, so good. Yeah.
I mean,
it's a pretty good stout, but it's just not that great. It's
not bad though.
It's not bad.
Maybe it'll get better.
It has surpassed my expectations for a stout from Blue Moon.
From Blue Moon, yes, true.
And so, as we continue to drink this beverage, we'll comment upon our ever so changing opinions because it happens with beer.
But so for the first episode, we are simply going to be talking about one of our favorite artists as of this moment.
Yes. And actually, it's kind of a funny story. We did record an initial first album before this, in which I listened to Vampire Weekend. The album was
Vampire Weekend. It was
self-titled. It was self-titled. And Jesse listened to...
What did I listen to?
What did you listen to?
It wasn't I Am the Avalanche, because that's next.
No. Well, Jesse listened to a punk rock album that I can't remember. And we were about 45 to 50 minutes in when all of a sudden it stopped recording. So instead of re-recording that one, we're just going to have a special fill-in episode where we just talk about our favorite artist at the moment, who is...
Fill-in episode. As in first episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're going to talk about our favorite artist, and his name is none other than Frank Turner.
Frank Turner.
And number one, he is the man.
He is the man.
He's awesome. He's so good.
Number two, he kind of combines both of the genres that this show is about, punk rock and kind of like indie folk. He blends those two together. Yeah. So he's punk folk, if you will.
Or
folk punk. Nice.
But anyway, specifically, we're going to be talking about his most recent album, Positive Songs for Negative People.
What a great album.
And there will be a link below to the various YouTube videos of this album / if you want to get it on iTunes or...
Yeah. But we'll provide you with ways to listen to it because we're not going to play it on here because we don't want to get sued.
Yes, it could be a very easy copyright infringement or whatever it would be.
Licensing issues.
We do not have a blanket license.
We have a 0 license. Disclaimer. But I do have a blanket in my closet.
Very true.
But before we start talking about this, the album Positive Songs for Negative People, let's give a little background information of Frank Turner.
Yes, let's.
All right. So the very first time...
First of all, who is he?
Who is he? He is a British musician.
Yes, British.
Yes, very British.
Quite.
If you saw him on the street, he'd say, "Hello, mates."
I think whenever we met him, he was like, "How's it going, guys?"
How's it going, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very British. But he initially started out in a hardcore punk band called Million Dead. It's kind of like a super political, very educated, really intense hardcore punk band.
That's like one of the things he said. He was like, we were trying to be super, like, vocabulary driven with our lyrics, and it was different.
They tried to be intelligent. I mean, they didn't. I suppose they were, but that was their goal, was to kind of be a learned, political, furious band.
Yeah.
And they had, I want to say, 2 albums, and then they disbanded. And so Frank Turner's kind of like stranded by himself, and he's like, "What should I do, mate?" and so he decided to start writing folk music.
Yeah.
I think in his book he said he heard Nebraska, the album by Bruce Springsteen, and that was kind of what persuaded him to start writing folk music.
So, first of all, he has a book called The Road Beneath My Feet, in which he talks about his beginning years with Million Dead, and then he also talks about kind of like starting on his own again and going across Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, in general, just playing a solo act, acoustic guitar, and that's it. And so that's kind of where he started after Million Dead. Was going towards more folk music, more
story driven.
Yeah, more story driven, more lyrically
emotional.
Driven. Yeah, but still having that kind of punk mentality.
Mm-hmm. And so he's been around since, I don't know, what,
2000,
mid 2000s.
Yeah.
I think he just celebrated his 10th or 11th year. The very first time I ever heard Frank Turner was in the great state of Tennessee, right here in Nashville.
Oh, yeah.
I was, normally when I'm in my car, I will either plug my iPod in via an auxiliary cable or I'll listen to a CD, because I really do not like the radio.
Same.
The radio's kind of poopy.
Down here, I mean, I've tried, but
I was on my way to help a friend move, and for some odd reason, I didn't have my iPod, and I didn't have any CDs in the car, so I listened to the radio, and I believe I was listening to a local station called Lightning 100, and they have kind of...
they're like an indie, only okay station.
Yeah, they're pretty decent. And I'm driving along saying, "Oh, I hate helping people move, but I'll always help because I can't say no." No, I'm just kidding. If you ever have friends who need to move, help them out. But so I was driving along, and I heard this awesome sounding folky fast song, and I didn't know what it was.
Which one was it again?
It was Recovery.
It was Recovery, yeah.
And I had no idea what it was. Super catchy. And at the very end, they said, "And that was by Frank Turner." And I was like, okay, Frank Turner, whatever. And I actually heard that song again while I was down here on the same station, but I was with somebody else and they had the radio on. So I heard it twice here, and then never paid it any more mention of mine.
Yeah.
And
I believe that I was in Minnesota at the time, which, as long as we're talking about radio stations, 81.3, The Current, the radio station 89.3, The Current? Yes, 89.3, The Current. It's a very good radio station. If you're listening in Minnesota, listen to that radio station. It's very good. They play very much up-and-coming music, not pop music, a lot of stuff that you haven't heard of. But anyway, I believe that I was listening to them, and they also probably played that same song.
Recovery.
And after that, I was like, oh, man, that was pretty good. And so I looked up Frank Turner later, and on an impulse, I bought that album. I bought it, listened to it. Recovery, the song Recovery, anyway.
So you did you did not listen to the whole album?
I did not listen to the whole album, and then just did not listen to it after that.
Fair enough. But in college, this is all during college when this happened. I remember you had shown me that Frank Turner, that you had bought the album. I was like, ooh, I really like him. Why don't you send that to me?
Yeah.
And so I had you send me the album, and I did the same thing.
Yeah,
I listened to Recovery.
Yeah.
I was like, great song. And then I didn't listen to anything else.
Yeah.
And it was after I had moved to Nashville permanently that I heard that he was coming out with a new album, and so I looked it up, and he had played an acoustic version of a song called The Opening Acts of Spring. He played it on a roof somewhere. I was like, oh my goodness, that song's so catchy.
Yeah.
So immediately I got online and pre-ordered the new album, and I started listening to all of his old stuff. And that's when I fell in love with Frank Turner. His music.
That was before I moved to Nashville, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And so the album Positive Songs for Negative People came out. And again, it was fantastic.
Which has that song on it.
Yeah. And I saw him live, and it was absolutely fantastic.
Did you see him live before I came to Nashville?
I did. He played,
Okay.
it was me and a couple other friends saw him play at, what the heck's that venue called? A place called Third and Lindsley downtown. And he played with a band called Two Cow Garage.
Really?
Yeah. And then he played, and it was just awesome.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
And since then, I think I've seen him like 5 times.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, since I've been to Nashville, I moved here in early spring of 2016.
Which is this year.
Which is this year. We have just dated the podcast, but that's okay. But since I've moved here, though, I've probably seen him about, I think, 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
But before I moved here, though, actually, no, I was thinking it was when I moved here, like, I started listening to Frank Turner more.
Yes.
Yep. And I mean, since then, it's just been insane. Like,
it's been a whirlwind.
A whirlwind of excitement. A whirlwind of
whirlwind.
A whirlwind of exuberance. I mean, it's
exuberance. That's a nice word.
He is just one of the best current artists that I listen to right now.
Yeah. And the reason I really like him is, well, I suppose I should give a brief little description of my musical preferences. So when I'm listening to music, the very first thing I listen to is the actual music itself, not the lyrics. So I either listen to something like fast and awesome that draws me in, or something that has a really great hook, something that I can hum along to and remember and sing. So that's the very first thing I listen to, and then I listen to lyrics. Mm-hmm. And if something's got a really, really catchy hook and it's super awesome, I can get past some kind of lame lyrics. But fortunately, Frank Turner's got really, really great melodies.
And this is where Steve and I are opposite.
Because you listen for words.
I listen for words first, and then music.
Yeah.
And the words of Frank Turner's songs are what drew me in first.
Mm-hmm.
And so, kind of say a terrible idiom, it's the best of both worlds.
It is.
You know, it's the best of both worlds. I mean, he's got amazingly catchy music, melodies, and he also has just amazing words.
He's a phenomenal lyricist.
Yeah, phenomenal lyricist. And so, on that note, I mean, what we want to do for this opening show is talk about the album Positive Songs for Negative People.
We can talk about the music and the lyrics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Music and lyrics. I think that's a movie.
Is it?
Music and lyrics. I think so, but I digress.
He talked about it for 2 seconds.
Yeah, it was a very short digress.
It was a very short digress.
We'll just call it a gress.
Not digress.
Yeah, if you abbreviate gress, it's just for a very short digression.
Not two gress. It was just
gress.
Uno gress.
Yeah, gress.
Digress. Just gress.
Yeah, I gressed. I gressed a little.
I gress.
I gress.
Anyway. Bottom line is, Frank Turner is the man. And if you have not listened to him, pause this, go listen to him. Go listen to the whole album of Positive Songs for Negative People right now.
And heck, listen to his whole discography.
Yeah, and then
come back and resume
then come
this.
back.
Yeah.
Then come back.
Yeah.
And then you can be like, I know exactly what they're talking about. But anyway, we digress.
All right. Yeah, we digressed. I'd say that was a digress.
Yes, that was a digress.
Yeah, but we're talking about digressing.
Speaking of digress, this beer is a digress.
Yeah, it's has your opinion changed at all?
No.
Yeah,
it's
me neither.
Just kind of average. It's definitely not bad. It's
it's got a sweetness to it. It's got a creaminess because it is an oatmeal stout. It's very drinkable. I mean, it's...
So whenever they say cappuccino...
That's the milk part. Oatmeal and milk
definitely
stout.
Heavy on the cappuccino.
Oh, yeah.
Not on the coffee.
I know a lot of people who haven't had any stouts are fearful of like a big heavy beer that's going to be really filling and a little too intense.
Very true.
Because I mean, the very first stout I ever had was Guinness, and I was like, "Whoa, this is very much not like Guinness at all."
No, this is definitely different.
No, it's much lighter, much smoother. It's very sweet. It's very drinkable.
I think Guinness was actually the first stout I had as well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it was at that point it was very.
What was that bar called?
Was it the Back Door?
No, it was start with a Z.
Zookies?
Yes, it was at Zookies.
Was that Zookies?
Yeah, we got a bar called Zookies near Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania.
Shout out to BF.
Yeah, Beaver Falls. The places.
Zookies, yeah, I know. I remember that place.
Yeah. But we digress even more.
Anyway, yes, exactly.
All right, so let's move on to the actual album, Positive Songs for Negative People.
So what we're going to do during this talk about this album, we're going to go through each individual track. We're going to talk about the lyrics.
Some will go in a little deeper than others.
Yeah. And
we'll just talk about them.
Are we going to give them a rating, or we're just going to say this whole album is a 5-star?
We'll say this whole album's 5-star.
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to rate them.
Definitely.
Very first song on this album is called The Angel Islington, and it starts it off pretty cool. It's just all acoustic. And in fact, they even have some... it sounds like he walks into the room, picks up the guitar, sits down, and just plays it.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty short track. I think it's only a minute and a half long.
It's very, very short. Kind of the same way that the Eulogy is.
Yeah.
How it's very short. Yeah. Which is the opening track of one of his earlier albums, England Keep My Bones.
Another fantastic album.
Amazing album. And first of all, the song Eulogy is just amazing.
Yeah. That's going to be my eulogy when I die.
Funeral material right there.
All right, but it's a pretty good song, The Angel Islington.
It is. Well, I mean...
And I think the only real line that I ever... is the kind of come back to is because it's an album starter is the I resolve to start again.
Yeah, but the thing that I also come back to is just the melody. By the waters of the Thames.
Very simple and very
bum, 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 bum. Yeah,
it's very scale.
It's very, very simple. Yeah, very scalable.
Like like going up in a scale.
What's the word though?
Scale.
Whatever descriptive word you use for
scaly.
Scaly. It's very scaly.
Not in a dragon way, in a music way. Yeah. Scaly.
So that song's really good. I mean...
Yeah, I don't really have too much to say about it. It's very simple, very catchy, and it's just the opening to the album.
Yeah.
But let's go to the next song, because I think that's a highlight of the album.
Yeah, okay. So picture this. If you did not pause and listen to the whole album, the next song is called Get Better.
Yes.
And The Angel of Islington ends on kind of a quiet note. He says, at the end of it, he says, by the waters of the Thames, I resolve to start again. And it kind of ends on like a really quiet note. And then the next song, Get Better, comes in.
I got me a shovel.
Yeah. The first lyric is, I got me a shovel.
And I'm digging a ditch.
Yeah.
And it starts out kind of like a punch in the face almost.
Yeah. And pardon my French, but I have to sing the next part. And he says, and I'm gonna fight for this 4 square feet of land like a mean old son of a bitch. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
And so
Frank Turner does use some curses.
He does. If you're offended by curses, don't listen to it. But it's super amazing though. So it just like comes from the very quiet Angel of Islington to just Get Better, and it's just a huge beginning. And the first line is just great. He says,
it is.
I got me a shovel, I'm digging a ditch, and I'm going to fight for this 4 square feet of land like a mean old son of a patootie.
But S.O.B.
S.O.B., yeah.
And like, whoa, that's musically and melodically, it's intense and kind of like loud.
And I mean, lyrically it's very different from the first song, too. And you're just like, holy crap, like, whoa, where'd this come from? And then the next line is, I've got me a future. I'm not stuck on the past. I've got no new tricks. Yeah, I'm up on bricks, but me, I'm a machine, and I was built to last.
And so the song's about being down on your luck, but you can always get better.
Exactly.
So they say it in the chorus, we can get better because we're not dead yet.
Yeah, exactly. The title is
Get Better.
Not the title, sorry. The chorus.
The chorus, yeah.
The chorus is, I'm trying to get better because I haven't been my best. She took a plain black marker, started writing on my chest. She drew a line across the middle of my broken heart and said, come on now, let's fix this mess. We can get better.
Because we're not dead yet.
I started singing in a British accent.
We can get better.
Because we're not dead yet, yeah.
Fancy some tea and crumpets. Let's get better.
But I mean, that's like the whole point of the song, though.
Yeah, it's such a positive song.
Is that last line, is we can get better because we're not dead yet.
Yeah.
And this song, personally for me, is one of my favorites to see live.
Yeah, and this is one of those ones, even when I'm driving by myself in my car, when the chorus comes on, I'm like, oh yeah, and I shout along. I don't sing along, I shout along to this song.
You kind of get goosebumps.
Yeah.
Like whenever it gets to the chorus, and you're like, yeah, and you're like a fist pump in the air, and it's just so good. I mean, yeah,
Get Better is one of the big highlights on the album for me.
Definitely.
The next song is called The Next Storm.
To say highlight is kind of a
the whole album. The whole album's a highlight, but this one is definitely a standout track for sure.
Yeah, like if we were to recommend like 3 songs from the album,
we'll do that later.
Okay,
but this is one of them. But we'll sum it up later.
Way to just shut me down.
Sorry, not sorry.
You. Whoa, stout burp.
Yeah, it was a stout burp. It actually didn't taste that pleasant.
I'm
a big fan of burps that come from IPAs because they're super flavorful.
True.
This one, not so much.
It's just all right.
It's just all right.
Anyway, next song.
Yeah, too much aggressing. The next song is called The Next Storm.
Great song.
It is a great song. It's pretty poppy. I mean, it's kind of piano driven, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. It's less
rock and roll.
Yeah, less rock and roll, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, this song, it's called The Next Storm. And essentially it's about
weathering the next trouble that will come your way.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a storm that's coming your way, you know it's gonna hit, it's terrible, like and you fight through it. It's kind of the same type of message as Get Better. It's like you're just gonna fight through it and become a better person through the storm.
And there's that one line where he's like, rejoice, rebuild, the time is...
Yeah, that's like the climax of the song.
Yeah.
It's just like...
And this is a dancey song. Like, you put it on, you're like, oh, gotta dance. This is, so catchy.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can describe it.
But anyway, the first verse is, we had a difficult winter. We had a rough few months. And when the storms coming off the coast, I felt like they broke everything honest at once. It's easy to talk about Blitz Spirit when you're not holding the roof up and you're knee deep in it. And the pictures in the papers got ruined in the rain. And we'd wondered if they'd ever get dry again.
So it's talking about weathering storms, literally, and...
So, like, a storm comes, like, they drench all of your, well, he says, papers and pictures. So, like, everything that you hold dear, like, pictures of your family or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think he's kind of putting that in there to encompass any storm that will come your way.
Yeah. So they get drenched by the rain, and we wondered if they'd ever get dry again. So,
so it's uncertainty.
You wondered if they ever get whole again, if they'd ever be the same as they once were.
But in the chorus, he talks about not wanting to spend the whole of his life inside. In fact, instead he wants to step out and face the sunshine.
Yeah, but I don't want to spend the whole of my life indoors, laying low and waiting for the next storm.
Yeah, so you don't want to spend your life scared. You want to go outside and take advantage of life, enjoy the things instead of being afraid of what's going to happen.
I don't want to spend the whole of my life inside. I want to step out and face the sunshine.
Even just like reading that lyrics, you're like, "Whoa, that's..."
Yeah, you're just like... It's like crap.
So imagine those awesome lyrics over this awesome piano-driven dance tune. Oh, it's so good. So good.
Yeah. I feel like that's all we have to say about that song. Like,
yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Yeah.
The next one's called The Opening Act of Spring.
Which Steve had mentioned earlier.
Yes, and this song is... it's got kind of like a mandolin kind of takes it from the beginning, and it's got like this kind of like folky country feel to it.
The opening act of spring.
Yeah, it's... Well, what would you say about this song? It's definitely a melodically driven song because in the pre-chorus or right going into the chorus, he's like, oh, and it's just this super catchy line, and that was the very first thing that kind of made me want to buy this album because I heard that. I was like, oh my, that's super catchy, something I could sing along to, or something that gets stuck in your head.
Yeah, it's very interesting because this song kind of takes a shift in the whole theme of the album because this is more of the negative part.
It's got a positive message.
But like the whole point of the album is positive songs for negative people. So people who are usually negative, people who see the more negative side of life, these are positive songs for them to kind of attach to.
And so the first part, like each line, he's talking about like I've fallen down, I'm so much worse than I have ever been. So he's talking about being in a bad place. But then the opening act of spring is about like the hope, like there's something that's coming, something that
and I mean kind of like the I don't know if this is the pre-chorus or just the second part of the verse, and he says, "And oh, please forgive me for the things that I must do."
That's the chorus.
Yeah, it's the chorus. Okay, but oh, though I have hurt so many people, it was never my intention to hurt you.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like he's like talking about.
Causing someone pain.
Yeah, just causing someone pain.
But in the very end of the song, it's in the very end of the song.
Exactly, it turns around.
Yes, he turns around. He's the same melody of the chorus, and he talks about like that line of shading you from the sun, so kind of protecting you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he takes something bad over the exact same melody of the chorus, and then turns it into something good and hopeful and positive. Yeah, only Frank Turner can do that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and he says, and I will find a way that leads from cruel April into May. And someday soon it will be June, and you'll decide to say. And then he says, in the other part, he says, "Oh, I will carry your umbrella in the summer, and I'll shade you from the sun."
Yeah, and that's over the same melody that he sings those kind of sad lyrics
earlier
in the song.
Yeah. And so I mean, like this just continues carrying through this idea of just being positive within the negative, being positive whenever you feel most negative.
Exactly.
Which is kind of the point of the album. I mean...
What about the next song?
The next song...
Glorious You.
It's called Glorious You. This is also a song I heard in The Current. They were like... I was at my friend Zach's house, and he was like... And I was in the garage, and we were listening to The Current, and they were like, and now a single from Frank Turner called Glorious You.
Oh no, a single from Frank Turner.
And want to know what I thought? Whenever I heard this, I was like, oh, Frank Turner. I heard Recovery by this guy. I wonder what this is.
And then you're like, oh.
Then I was like, oh, this is pretty good.
And this one's more electric guitar driven.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I remember seeing him live and he played an electric guitar on this, which is unusual because he always does an acoustic guitar. So let me think about... Well, hey, first, say what you have to think about this song real quick before I move on to the next song.
Yeah.
Because I know you like this song more than I do. I do like the song a lot message-wise, but musically it's not my favorite, if that makes any sense.
Right. As in, it's just not exactly...
It's not my favorite, like, melody. The chords and everything aren't my favorite on the album. But subject-wise, I like about what it's about.
Yeah, I mean, like...
It's about lifting up the weight of the world together.
Yeah, I mean, this song starts out talking about... the first line is, I can see you hurting beneath your new red dress. Beneath your new tattoos and your sharp new shoes, you are directionless.
And so it's...
Directionless. So it's like talking about a person who's kind of, like, almost in a way, like, searching for something, or... like they just don't know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. But on the chorus, he brings it back and says, "Come on now, let's
come on now, let's all if we all pull together,
we can lift up the weight of the world
from your shoulders."
Yeah. And it says, "You were always glorious. You were glorious."
Yeah. So let me find it. So come on now, if we all pull together, we could lift up the weight of the world from your shoulders. Lift up the weight of your world from your shoulders just for a moment or two. And be glorious. It says, and be glorious you, glorious you, glorious you, with you. Yeah, so like he's like
talking about someone being glorious.
Essentially saying like, listen, like we can get through this bad stuff to bring you back up into like what you should be, you know, like what, like bring you back up into the positive person that we know like you can be, you know.
And it's definitely not a punk rock song. I mean, it kind of kicks a little bit, but that whole message of unity and helping people out is
but
kind of a punk rock theme.
It's more of a folky song though. But
it is.
I digress though.
Yeah, he gresses, and I'm gonna move on to the next song, which is one of my favorites on the album, called Mittens, and it's as far as tempo wise, like musically speaking, they take it back a little bit. It's more of a slower tempo song, and it's got this line at the beginning that's played on the piano and then is eventually doubled by the guitar, and it's the exact same melody that he ends up coming back into the chorus. And so by repeating this melody over and over again, it's something that gets stuck in your head, something that you can sing along to. So that was the very first thing that brought me in. But as unusual as it is, I did pay attention to the lyrics of this song the first time I heard it. At least to the chorus, because it's kind of a really sad song about unrequited love. In the chorus, he's like, I once wrote you love songs, but you never fell in love. We used to fit like mittens, but never like gloves. And when you think about that, because gloves fit each finger perfectly, whereas mittens are kind of awkward and don't really work together 100%. Even though mittens maybe keep you warmer, that's not what the song's about. We didn't fit together in the way that we were supposed to. And it's pretty, I'm sure this came from his own personal experience, because he's got real specific lines about wandering through New York and ending up buying postcards in the city street to send back. Like he says, I once wrote you postcards, but you never wrote back. Yeah. It's just a really emotional song, and it gives me for lack of a better term, and to be a little cliche, it gives me the feels.
Yeah, and I mean the melody in that part is so good too.
Yeah, and that's what I had already touched on. Pretty good, because that melody comes in periodically and keeps coming back.
Yeah, I was just reiterating.
Yeah, I know. Do you have anything else? Because I feel like I touched upon that song pretty good. The music video is pretty hilarious. He's dressed up like Elvis on a stage. I don't know. Have you seen the music video for that?
No.
Oh, I'll show you later. It's hilarious.
Okay.
And if we can find it, we'll post it below here. But if not, go look it up. It's kind of funny. Yeah. It's a shot about him on stage being Elvis and then trying to impress a crowd. Yeah. It doesn't work out.
And I mean, it's just kind of a sad song.
It's a sad song,
but it's good though, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway.
I guess it doesn't really have a positive message in the end. It's just kind of sad.
That's one of the negative songs though. See, that's why the title is so good.
Yeah. Positive songs for negative people.
Anyway.
So with that being a slow tempo song, obviously the very next song has to be a fast one. And this is without a doubt the fastest song on the whole album.
This song is one of my favorites for him to play live.
It's called Out of Breath. And it's a straight punk song. It's super fast. And actually it's almost got like a honky tonk feel to it.
Honky tonk, really?
There's a piano part going in it too. Like, I
don't know about honky tonk though.
I would. If you mix punk rock and honky tonk, that's what I would say. And it's just this really, really fast song.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's got a super catchy melody.
Somewhere down the road, well, there's a ditch, well, there's a hole. That marks the spot you will lie when you are cold. Yeah.
It's just a really... I don't think it's a very deep song by any means. Compared to the rest of the songs on the album, it's not that deep. I think they just wanted to have a fast tempo song to put right smack dab in the middle of the album.
Be out of breath. Yeah. But...
I don't really have more to say about that song.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like, if any of you get a chance to see Frank Turner live, hopefully he plays this song.
Yeah, it's a fun one to bounce around to.
It's intense. Yeah, it's so good.
But the next song might actually be the catchiest song on the album for me, but it lyrically, I wouldn't agree with it 100%.
Right, yeah.
And it falls into a punk rock kind of mentality where it's, I don't know, kind of enjoy your life while you have it and do the most of what you can, which is a good thing. But where I disagree with it is, I don't know, what, do you agree with everything that's said in the song? Or how do you kind of feel?
Not everything, but I mean, I kind of understand it, though. Like, it's not... let me see. I definitely don't 100% disagree with it, but I also don't 100% agree with it. Do you know what I mean?
I agree with the fact of kind of making the most of your life and kind of taking advantage of every situation.
And honestly, I mean, the title is Demons.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, if you think of the title as just as kind of a non-word and just listen to the lyrics, you know, it's a little bit different. But so the lyrics are, if life gives you demons, make a deal. Meet them at the crossroads, cross your fingers, and then sign and seal.
Yeah, but he's got other lines that are kind of like, we're all going to hell, so let's party.
Yeah, I mean, Frank Turner...
Yeah, Frank Turner's definitely not a religious guy, which, I don't know, being a fan of punk rock music, I don't know if I know any punk rock bands that are really that religious.
Right.
In fact, I've listened to many bands that are avidly anti-religious.
Yeah.
So it's whatever.
Which is fine. Like, there's no reason why, like...
Yeah,
this album can't also be very joyful and awesome.
But I think he's saying something that he truly believes in, so I honestly respect that.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's maybe like a 3-part harmony in the end, and it's just so good.
Yeah.
Like, and they eventually close the song by taking away all the music and having the harmonies going in. Ooh, it touches my heart in such a way that most music can't.
Yeah.
I've got a soft spot for really good harmonies, and this one is a really, really good harmony.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's all I got to say about that one.
Yeah.
It's super catchy song, really, really catchy.
It's also super good, man.
The next song is called Josephine.
Josephine.
And Josephine is a reference to, I have no idea what her last name is, but the Josephine in which Napoleon Bonaparte was in love with. And he wrote her letters often. And they were I don't know if any of you are history buffs at all, but he wrote some very emotionally drenched letters to this Josephine. Whereas in the same letter, he can talk about like being so in love that he doesn't know what to do with himself. He's going crazy over love. And then he'll, at the very next paragraph, curse her out and say he wants to kill her. It's kind of an odd letter, a series of letters.
It's a very odd dynamic.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance, kind of look up some summaries of the letters that Napoleon Bonaparte wrote to this lady. But he also references other historical figures in this song, such as Beethoven and his immortal beloved, which is kind of another really cool historical
definitely.
story.
Like it's that story is very interesting.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard about Beethoven, he had a couple
If you
loves.
haven't heard about Beethoven.
His story, not about him. He had a couple big loves in his life, some ladies, but nothing permanent. He was kind of a hard guy to get along with.
For those of you who don't know, Beethoven was a composer in the...
people know that. Dun, 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 dun.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't know...
That's Beethoven.
Exactly. If you don't know...
One of the most well-revered, most well-known composers of all time.
Yeah. His most famous symphonies are his fifth
and his ninth.
And his ninth.
Yeah.
His ninth...
Für Elise, that do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah.
That's Beethoven.
So his ninth being Ode to Joy.
Yeah.
The... Da 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 da
Yes.
bum 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 bum, and his fifth being ba 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 bum ba 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 ba. Yeah.
So he's a super famous composer.
Yeah.
But he had there were some women in his life that he was in love with. He never got married, never had lasting relationships. But after he passed away, they found his will, and he left everything to his immortal beloved. And that was the mystery. Who is his immortal beloved? Who is the love of his life that nobody could talk about? And there are some letters or some diary entries that he had where he talked about his immortal beloved, and it was kind of vague, but it's that wondering, who is this mysterious immortal beloved?
Yeah.
And so he just kind of references them throughout the song.
But that's also just a great song too, though. I mean, like, I kind of say that about most of the songs, but that's because they're all very catchy and very Good.
But do you know what song is catchier than Josephine?
Love 40 Down?
Yeah, the very next song, Love 40 Down. In Love 40 Down, you're kind of like, what the heck does that mean? But if you know anything about tennis, you'd be like, oh, I know exactly what that means. In the game of tennis, the scores go up, like each point is kind of a different interval. If you get one, the first score is 15, seconds 30, next one's 40.
Yeah.
So if you're playing an opponent and they have scored more than you and they're literally on their last point about to win, they call it love 40 down. Love being you and then being 40.
Yeah.
And love is down.
So this is a song about losing in tennis.
Oh, essentially, yeah. But it's more than that because it's kind of being in a bad spot where you're about to lose everything.
Yeah.
In whatever situation he's referencing, you're about to lose it all, and it's kind of like, I don't know. He's trying to say, how do I get out of this? Someone help me out.
Yeah.
Because he does talk about. I mean, it's very drenched in tennis imagery.
Yeah.
Because he's talking about. He's like, I need the crowd to pray for me.
Yeah.
And
I'm love 40 down.
I'm battered and I'm bruised and I can't afford to lose.
I'm battered and I'm bruised.
Yeah, it's a super catchy song too.
Yeah.
He's talking about being on the break point and
not being able to make it through. Then he part break point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's super
good.
catchy song. And if you're just thinking this song's about tennis, then it's goofy. But when you're kind of knowing what he's referencing in life,
when you think about the whole entirety of the album, like the song "Get Better." Mm-hmm. And it's just like that mentality of like, what can I do to improve myself? What can I do to kind of get out of this slump that I'm in? You know, that's the song kind of encompasses it. You know, like
I agree.
Being able to come back from Love 40 Down. So yeah, it's another great song. Another song I love to hear live.
And the very last line is, "I'm going to turn this one around."
Yeah, so exactly.
So that's what you're just talking about.
That's the point. Like that's the best part to hear live too, because he screams that. He's just like, "I'm gonna turn this one around,"
and he really screams.
He just screams it, you know. And
if I tried to sing that, my voice would not work.
Yeah, and this is just another reminder, FYI, public service announcement,
PSA.
If Frank Turner is coming to wherever you live, go see him.
Yes.
Because, I mean, like, one of these songs, like Get Better or Love 40 Down, or just any song, is reason enough to see him live.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But with that said, there are 2 songs left on the album, and they're kind of 2 of the saddest songs on the album.
Yeah, definitely.
The first one, Silent Key, is... how would you class it? It's like a historical fiction.
No, not fiction, just historical commentary.
Oh, commentary, but it's speculative fiction. That's what I was going to say.
Speculative fiction.
He takes a true story and then kind of adds some, I don't know, some artistic freedom to it and kind of speculates on what might have happened.
Infers what happens.
Yeah. But the song after that is the saddest song on the whole album. But before we get to that, we'll talk about the second to last song, the penultimate song, Silent Key. And so this song talks
Before
about...
we start, this beer has gotten worse since I started drinking it.
Yeah, it's as it warms up.
As it is warmed up, it is not good.
Yeah, for those of you who aren't big beer drinkers or are, I don't know, occasional beer drinkers, warm beer is a term that people usually will refer to for crappy beer. Because people are like, oh, it's warm. Because that's... I mean, most of the time people are drinking Budweisers or
Miller Lite or
something cheap. And so when that gets warm, they're like, ooh, crappy, not good. But the truth is, once a beer warms up, that's when you can actually taste it the best.
Yeah.
That's why people who are drinking their silver bullets, which is Coors Light, sorry.
It has to be ice cold.
If it's not ice cold...
It's not good.
It's not good. And even when it's ice cold, it's still not that good. But literally, if you're drinking a crappy beer, the more it warms up, the worse it tastes because you're actually tasting what the beer is.
Yeah.
And so when you have
it's not preserved by the degree of the beer.
Exactly.
The temperature of the beer.
And so that's why when you have a more expensive, kind of refined, super flavorful beer, they kind of tell you to drink it not refrigerator temperature. You're supposed to let it warm up just a little bit.
It's more like don't drink it at like 38 degrees. drink it at like 45 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's when you
instead.
actually taste what's going on. So
yeah, and it tastes. And usually, whenever you have a beer, the more it warms up, the better it tastes.
Yeah, if you have a beer that starts to taste worse as it warms up, then it's not a good beer, hands down.
Yeah, and so this Blue Moon.
This Blue Moon is starting to taste pretty bad.
Cappuccino oatmeal stout is just not cutting it. It's not bad. I mean, when it was really cold, it wasn't bad, but
which is kind of an insult to the beer, but it's not that good. So, oh well. Would I have this one again? I wouldn't pay for it. That's my verdict.
But I have 4 left from the 6-pack I bought, so,
so
we'll have them again.
Yeah, but I will not go seek this beer again.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway.
I can definitely say I've had worse stouts, and so I kind of had really low expectations for this beer, to be honest. Because Blue Moon, I love their
Belgian's not bad.
Yeah,
their Belgian.
The standard Blue Moon is really kind of a tasty beer,
especially if you have the orange peel in it.
Oh yeah, the orange peel makes the beer.
Yeah, but as our final verdict,
I know my mom, who every time she has a Blue Moon, if she doesn't have the orange, she'll wait until she gets the orange to have the Blue Moon.
Oh, Cheryl.
Yeah.
But as a final verdict, that beer is not that good.
Yeah, not that good. We'll have better ones next week.
True.
Speaking of which, should we? We'll wait to recommend albums later. For the next podcast. All right, now back to Frank Turner, Silent Key. All right, so Frank Turner wrote this song 100% about the Challenger explosion in 1989.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, 1986.
And for right now, I'm gonna let Steve take this over because he knows about this.
I know this. Yeah, I was not born yet, but
he has researched it though.
I've researched this one quite a bit.
Since we've heard this song, he has researched it. So
prior to this song, I knew about the Challenger explosion. I knew that it had exploded upon takeoff, but that was about all I knew. And so when I heard this song, the very first thing he says on the 29th of January 1986.
I mean, on the 29th of
28th.
January
1986,
yeah.
Krista McAuliffe gazed in horror as the O-rings failed. Yeah. And so the first time I listened to it, I was like, what in the world?
So yeah, O-rings. O-rings.
So I immediately looked up the lyrics to this song. And the next thing I did is I went on YouTube and I looked up a documentary about the Challenger explosion.
Yeah.
And then I proceeded to watch about 5 or 6 documentaries about the Challenger explosion. So a little background information about the Challenger. It was the very first space exploration mission in which a non-astronaut went into space. And it was a woman by the name of Krista McAuliffe. And she was a primary school teacher.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
She won some type of contest.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that.
Where she would be the first person, for lack of a better term, civilian to go into space. And so she went through all of her training, went into space, and this was a big deal. Everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, this is the future."
Yeah.
After this, we're all going to be able to go into space. Like people are going to pay to go into space. It's going to set a new precedent for travel and for exploration. And so everybody is watching this happen live. Yeah. And what was it 2 minutes and 45 seconds into the no. It was I don't know, maybe 72 seconds into the launch.
Really?
Soon. It was pretty soon. They were launched and people were watching it.
Wow, man.
The ship exploded. And so everyone was watching this. And now this is definitely going to be a overstatement, but I know like a lot of people everyone knows where they were for September 11th, right?
Yeah.
Like if someone says, I know exactly where I was when I saw September 11th happen.
Born, 1992.
I mean, this isn't to the same degree of September 11th, but I bet you a lot of people can remember exactly where they were when they were watching the Challenger explosion on TV. Yeah. And they weren't watching news reports of it happening afterwards. They were watching this live.
It was live, right? Yeah.
And I know for a fact that schools were having kids watch this too, because this was a historic event. And so everyone's watching this, and it's not a small explosion. It's a massive explosion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can remember 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
Like, clear
Same
as day.
Here. I remember every detail of that day.
In my 4th grade class. I mean,
and so anyone who's watching that, the Challenger explosion is going to have...
Yeah. I mean, that would just be
pretty
crazy.
vivid memories, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That would definitely be a type of event that the entire nation would watch.
Oh, yeah. It's major. It's historic. But after the explosion happened, they launched a bunch of investigations, and they were able to locate a lot in the wreckage from the the
Capsule?
cockpit type capsule, yeah.
Capsule, yeah.
And they were able to locate, I want to say, 3 of the astronauts had started their emergency suit systems, which can just like they had on their actual person had started some type of safety protocol, which can only happen manually, which means at least 3 of them survived the initial explosion, and they would have fallen all the way down to the ocean and surpassed a maximum velocity that would have killed them on impact. And so they fell for 2 minutes and 45 seconds. And so Frank Turner, in his genius, kind of thought about what were they doing in that 2 minutes and 45 seconds? Were they able to send out a broadcast? Were they able to try and radio somebody?
Yeah.
And that's what this song is about.
Yep.
And so he kind of took it upon himself to kind of guess and make a fake story about it, which is kind of really interesting to think about.
Yeah, which is the infertile part.
And so this song is about Krista McAuliffe taking a radio and calling out for help, saying, we're alive, help us.
Yeah.
And he kind of went into the story where the radio broadcast is being picked up by a child on a ham radio. And he's the only person to hear their call. And it's kind of crazy just to kind of come up with an idea like that and write a song about that.
Again, if in the comments below, we'll have a link to whatever. I mean, this album or the song, but, listen to this song though, if you haven't already.
And the word silent key itself talks about one radio broadcaster that has signed off.
Yeah.
And so Krista McAuliffe is the silent key.
Yeah.
How's that for... This song gives me goosebumps. I'll just say that. Once you know what it's all about, it really will give you goosebumps. This song makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Ooh. All right, but I talked about that one a lot. Should we move on?
I digress. No, let's keep going. Let's keep going on that song.
Oh, okay. What did you say?
So
there's that part in the bridge where the girl sings. You remember that?
Yeah.
And she's supposed to be singing as Krista McAuliffe.
Yeah.
This is... I want to say that I heard this somewhere. It might not be true. I know that they tried to get some pop star to sing this chorus, and I want to say that they tried to get Taylor Swift to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but Frank Turner, I'm pretty sure that he said no, he doesn't want someone famous on a song. I think he wanted to get someone else that he respected, and I believe it's a girl who signed to the same record label that he's on.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool. In all honesty, if I heard Taylor Swift on this, I'd be like, meh.
But this part where she sings the darkness up above, like it's just like the person they found to write this, I mean not to sing it is very good. Like it portrays that type of almost want or like desperation.
Yeah.
And
because that's that moment, last call of desperation.
Yeah, like if there's something else like in the darkness up above, and it's I don't know, very good song. Very different than the rest of their songs.
Very different. It's a very unique song musically.
Like as far as if you're to classify these songs as A, B, or C, most of the other songs would be A and B, and this song would be Z.
Z?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, I don't know.
It's very different. We'll
it'd
just
be
say
F or D.
F it'd be far away from A and B.
Yeah.
No, it is very different. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's very different, but it's also it fits. It's very good.
All right, anyway, on to the most depressing song of the album.
Yeah, definitely the most depressing song.
Which is kind of unique to have an album called "Positive Songs for Negative People" and then have the very last song be the saddest, most depressing song on the entire album.
Yeah, but it's good though.
Yeah,
like it's very sad.
Yeah, it's a song called "Song for Josh."
Yep.
And it was written about a guy named Josh Burdett, who was a bouncer. I think he was the head of security at the 930 Club in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, he ended up committing suicide, which is a tragedy in itself.
Yes.
I mean, suicide's just a horrible thing. For any odd reason, it's terrible. But he was somebody who was close to Frank Turner. And
Because, I mean, Frank must have played there quite a bit.
yeah.
To get to know him at all.
Oh, yeah. And to know him that well, he had to spend a lot of time with him.
And one side note, this song was recorded live, correct?
Yes. It was recorded at the 930
At
Club.
the 930, yep.
So he wrote this song for Josh, the one who passed away. And it's basically just lamenting his life and the tragedy of taking your own life. And he talks about Josh having some depression. And he's kind of saying, why didn't you call? My phone's always on.
Yeah.
He wanted to be there for him, but he couldn't at the time. And then ultimately it resulted in Josh taking his own life.
And I mean, just the one line that just absolutely kills me in the song is, why didn't you say something on the last time we met? Why didn't you say something? There's always hope left. You know, and that's just like that line, and then one of the last lines as well is just absolutely just so heartbreaking. Where is it? Goodness me, where is this?
Well, I have no idea what line you're talking about, but I know there's...
Oh, yeah, okay, no, I found it. I'll just read this whole portion.
Okay.
So at 9:30 each evening, I'll
Time out.
What?
9:30 each evening would mean 9:30. So that's a reference to the 9:30 Club. So every time,
true.
that happens, he's going to think about.
That was actually the first time that I thought of that. Wow.
Oh, you didn't think about that?
No.
Yeah. So he says, I think a couple times he says about 9:30 each evening, which references the club that Josh worked at.
So at 9:30 each evening, I'll think of my friend. At 9:30, I'll remember you were better than your end. For this is the part that I love. For I too have stood up on that ledge, but I know you'd have pulled me back from the edge. And I let you down to your darkness. I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And so like whenever, honestly, the first time I heard this song, I heard him like sing that. And I started like crying, like bawling. I was like, "Oh my gosh! Like this is so intense. This is way too intense."
It's a very emotional song.
And then
and actually, that line kind of reminds me of a song on the new No Effects album,
Oh, really?
Sidetrack. Yeah,
really,
the Tony Sly song.
Oh,
which
yeah,
Tony Sly is a pretty big name in the punk rock industry, and he passed away.
We'll have another episode about him.
But let me say that line anyways. Fat Mike says, "I wasn't there for you when you needed a friend." But I was there to give your eulogy, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, just like, I mean, just the simple fact that he says, "For I too have stood up on that ledge."
So he's experienced darkness.
He's experienced the same type of thing, the same type of sorrow, the same type of depression, the same type of whatever. And he says, "But I know you would have pulled me back. Like I know you would have been there for me."
And I wish I could have been there for you.
Yeah, I wish I could have been there for you. Like, to pull you back from that, to get you back to the happiness, the positive side to this whole idea, this whole life, this whole purpose, to like this album is, I mean, that kind of brings it back. It's like, these are positive songs is what he's trying to go for with this album.
So maybe he's kind of closing this by saying, anyone who's in Josh's shoes, let this album help you.
Yeah, like he's closing it by saying, like, yes, there are negative times. There are always going to be negative times. But you have to stay positive. Like, there are way more good things to think about than bad, And so, yeah, like, that's a very sad way to close the album.
But it's very powerful.
But it's so powerful, though. And I mean, even just... Whoa.
Sorry.
But even just listening to that song, like, just by itself, just, like, makes me tear up. And just like, man, like, he really cared for this guy. And, like, I don't know.
But it does put a close on an absolutely fantastic album.
Yeah, I mean, just back to front. Front to back to front. Whatever you want to say. Side to side. This album is amazing.
Front and back, side to side.
Oh man. Is there anything else you want to say about this album?
Yeah, this album is so good that we have tattoos of it.
True. That is very true.
Yeah, and here's the story about that. We were up in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah. In Louisville.
Yeah, well, I would say Louisville because that's what I grew up saying, but apparently when you're there, the less you say, the better. So if you talk to anyone from Kentucky, they'll call it Louisville.
Louisville.
Oh, why don't y'all come down to Louisville, Kentucky?
Oh, hey, we're in Louisville, Kentucky. Louisville.
But I like to make people from Louisville mad and say Louisville. Just to be funny. But we were there to see Frank Turner, and
yes.
I want to say we were there about 5 hours before the show started.
We were there very
early, yeah. And so
we went to Against the Grain, which is a brewery in Kentucky.
It was me, Jesse, and one of our friends, Becca. We went up to Louisville, Kentucky, and we spent some time at Against the Grain Brewing, and we still had like 5 hours before the show. And so we're like, we kind of joked to ourselves because we'd walk past the tattoo studio like, let's get tattoos. Yeah. And then we're kind of like, let's do it. Let's actually do it.
And then I believe I said like, oh, I could totally get the positive and negative sample from Frank Turner's most recent album.
And I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
And so we found a tattoo studio that had an opening, and we went and we got it. And then we went to the concert, and right after the concert, we saw Frank Turner outside. He was talking to some fans, because he's a good guy, the kind of guy who will do that and talk to his fans afterwards.
That's another thing.
We'll touch upon that in a second.
Okay, sounds good.
But we were talking to him, and we're like, Frank, guess what we did? He's like, oh, I don't know, mate. And we're like, we got positive songs for negative people tattoos. And we showed him. He's like, no way, I've got the same one on me arm. So... we were tattoo buddies, and we actually saw him the next day in another city.
Yeah, okay. So there was a show in Louisville, and then there was also a show in Knoxville. So we live in Nashville, which is
right in between both,
which is like about 2.5 hours away from both.
Yeah.
So what we did was we went to the Louisville one, then we went back to Nashville, and then we went to Knoxville the next day. And so Frank Turner has a
tour flag.
A tour flag, yeah.
That he actually doesn't have anything to do with. It's all kind of fan-driven, and the fans will take it around from show to show, and people are elected to carry it from one show to the next and pass it along.
Yeah.
And somehow I was elected as the person to take it from Louisville to Knoxville.
Yep.
And so when we took it from Louisville to Knoxville, he always likes to give a shout-out to the people who carry the flag around.
Well, what happens is he usually gives a song request to the people who carry the flag.
And I totally did that.
So during the Knoxville show, he was like, and this goes out to the flag bearers, my tattoo buddies.
Yep, he remembered us.
So yeah, he remembered us from that show.
Yeah.
And he was like, to my tattoo buddies, and you requested Father's Day.
Yes.
Right, yeah. And that
such a good song.
So good, very good.
Yeah. But going back to the fact that he talks to people after his shows.
Yeah.
The reason why I think this is massive is because in England, he has sold out Wembley.
Yeah, like Wembley Arena.
Yeah, like that's the places where like the Foo Fighters go to sell out arenas.
That's like Foo Fighters. That's like Jack White sells that out. That's like...
His tours in the UK sell out as soon as they go on tour.
Yeah.
Yet in America, he's playing like, I don't know, anywhere between 200 to 600 capacity venues. And he's still hanging around afterwards talking to every person who wants to talk to him.
Yeah, so there were maybe like... After the Louisville show, there were maybe like...
30, 40 people out there?
30 or 40 people hanging out afterwards. And he stayed and talked to everybody, and
not just like the hello,
not just like, hey, how's it going? Bye, see you later.
Genuine.
He was like, hey, how you doing? And like we told him that, and he was like, oh my god, guys, like I've had the worst day, and that just made it totally better.
Yeah.
Or whatever. I think that might
better.
Might have gone a little bit Australian.
My British always goes Australian.
But I think there were also a couple of curse words that I left out there.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah, he likes to curse.
But the fact is, he was super personal with us, and he was like
genuine. Yeah,
yeah, he was super.
The
genuine.
fact that he was saying he had a really crappy day.
Yeah, and he was like, guys, I've had a really kind of
crappy day,
poopy day.
Yeah,
but that totally made it better, and
it's just anyone who cares about their fans that much, just to put in the time and be honest and like listen to your fans and talk to them with that like an open heart. That's so awesome.
And it wasn't just him; it was the rest of the band too. Like we talked to Matt Nazir after that too.
Oh yeah.
And then we also saw
because he commented on your beard.
Yeah, true. He's like nice beard, mate.
Yeah. And
I was like, thanks, I guess.
Yeah, and then I was like, I wish I had a nice beard.
But anyway.
All right, before we sign off, let's give a top 3 of this album.
Okay.
Here's my number 1 would be Silent Key.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
It's my favorite song. I have to be honest.
Okay, all right.
My number 2 would be Get Better. And my third would be the opening act of Spring. I think those are my 3 favorite.
Okay. My number 1 is definitely Get Better. Definitely that.
Easy choice.
Number 2 is Glorious You. And number 3 is probably Demons.
Oh.
Oh, wait. Either that or Out of Breath.
Either of them would
just
be good
because they're both so good live.
Yeah. Agreed.
But either way, Get Better.
Okay.
Is one we both recommended. So if you have not listened to it yet, check that link out below.
And also,
listen to
it. Because we want people to check out the rest of Frank Turner's music, how about 3 songs to recommend not on this album?
Okay, yeah,
in which I would choose Recovery,
okay, yeah.
The Way I Tend to Be,
yeah,
and Photosynthesis. Those would be my 3 recommendations.
And I would choose Eulogy. Peggy Sang the Blues.
Ooh, I might have. Oh, that's another one I might recommend.
I was surprised you didn't choose that.
In fact, actually, you know what? I'm going to pick that instead of The Way I Tend to Be because that's actually probably might be my favorite Frank Turner song. Why didn't I think of that?
I don't know because you also recommended that.
Look at the wall. I've got a picture of a wall that has some lyrics from Peggy Sang the Blues.
And okay, so if you're not going to choose The Way I Tend to Be, then I'll choose that.
Okay, yeah.
Because
even though it's a great song,
so
but
good.
I like Peggy Sang the Blues better.
And yeah, also Photosynthesis is so good.
Yeah. Okay, well, like I said, Frank Turner is a fantastic musician, a great lyricist, genuinely a really good guy.
Yeah, just a really cool dude.
Yeah.
Like, just awesome.
And I think he's got a song that anybody can... If you listen to all of his songs, there's going to be something that you'll enjoy.
Yeah, definitely.
I will make that gamble that there's a song for everybody.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, I would say so too. Like he is.
If you don't like Frank Turner, you're a crazy person.
You are a little bit messed up
in the noggin,
in the head.
Well, you might not like Frank Turner's music,
and you may not agree with what he says all the time.
But you got to respect someone who's doing something with honesty and integrity because he's sticking true to his ideals. And
if you see him live, you'll change your mind altogether.
Yeah.
Even if you hate him.
In fact, we were at a concert recently, and there was some dude who was going crazy dancing along, and he wasn't really singing along. And afterwards, he's like, "I've never seen him, but he just made a fan out of me." And I was like, "Yeah, man, he's awesome."
Yep, exactly. Yeah, that's case in point right there.
But I'd say this concludes our very first episode of Brews and Tunes.
Yes.
But before we do this, let's recommend our albums for next week.
Yep. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna recommend each other albums to listen to next week.
So I'll recommend an album called Avalanche United by a band called I'm the Avalanche. So you will listen to that.
Okay.
And
oh yeah.
And what should I listen to?
You're going to listen to an album called Neon Bible by Arcade Fire.
Huh.
Very good album.
I'll have to check it out.
Yes.
But when we come back together, we will have listened to each of our respective albums a bunch of times. We'll familiarize ourselves with them, and we'll each come back with 2 new brews, and we will record another episode of Brews and Tunes. And with that, let's sign off with our sign-off word.
Key phrase.
That was not it. All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. See you guys.
Peace.